Today we're going to take a look at the Walksnail Avatar GT2, the latest digital video transmission system from Caddx, designed specifically for long-range flying, larger drones and fixed-wing platforms. From the very beginning, Walksnail has been an interesting system focused on development and expansion. It launched with good image quality and solid range, and rapidly grew its ecosystem. We got different goggles, a wide range of cameras, VTXs, receivers and other accessories. But at the same time, through all those years, it was clear that the ecosystem was still maturing right in front of the users. Older VTXs often use different connector types, different cables and adapters, less convenient firmware update methods, issues with memory card handling and fragile antenna connectors. As a result, almost everyone using the system probably ended up with a collection of different cables and USB adapters for each individual VTX. None of these things disqualified the system, but in practice they sometimes made the user feel more like a beta tester than someone using a polished consumer product. That certainly appealed to a niche group of enthusiasts, but for people who don't enjoy tinkering and simply want the plug-and-play product, it could be discouraging. And that's exactly why the GT2 is so interesting. For the first time, it feels like many of those practical issues have been finally addressed, and we're dealing with a truly mature product. So let's start by taking a look at the hardware itself. The GT2 is not a small VTX, it's a larger design intended more for bigger platforms. The transmitter itself weighs around 52 grams, so this is definitely not the kind of hardware you choose when every single gram matters. But for larger long-range quads or fixed-wing, that weight is much easier to accept. In return, you get a more powerful transmitter, better cooling and a more robust overall construction. The integrated fan blends nicely into the housing design. Even on the GT1 it looked decent, simply because the fan was factory installed, but here it feels much cleaner and more refined. The GT2 has a power consumption of around 16 watts at maximum transmission power. For comparison, the previous GT version required around 24 watts. That means the new system is significantly more efficient. For example, on a 4S battery, it's slightly above 1 amp of current draw, which is a good result and also helps reduce heat generation. Another important change is the USB-C port. It may not sound revolutionary, but in practice, this is the first time we see it here, and it simply makes life easier. With older VTXs, you often needed special cables and adapters, usually different for every VTX. Here USB-C allows you to connect the VTX directly to a computer and access the contents and flight recordings. Also, the GT2 uses a proper spring-loaded card slot. Previously, on some Walksnail VTXs, manufacturer even included small stickers to help pull them out. That was still the case on the GT1. Here it finally works the way it should have from the beginning. Another new feature is the change in antenna connectors. The GT2 uses MMCX connectors instead of the more fragile UFL connectors used on previous VTXs. MMCX is larger and slightly heavier, but in a system like this it makes perfect sense. The antennas sit much more securely, they are harder to accidentally disconnect, and the entire setup feels far more solid. You also plug them in externally without needing to remove delicate protective covers. This is definitely a better solution, lower risk of damage and much simpler installation. The GT2 also supports GM gimbals and direct head tracking from goggles through a connection to the VTX. So now the gimbals are compatible with Moonlight, the VTX V2 and now the GT2 as well. Now let's move on to the settings. The first thing we notice is the addition of frequency hopping, which has finally arrived. Normally, you'll select a fixed channel on the system to operate on. If that channel becomes noisy, the transmission may become less stable. Frequency hopping analyzes available frequencies and can dynamically switch to a better channel depending on radio conditions. This feature has been standard in RC links for a long time, so it's great to finally see this feature included here as well. The GT2 supports up to 2 watts of output power, but that was already present in the first version. What's much more interesting is that the GT2 supports automatic power control. In practice, this means the system can dynamically adjust transmission power based on current conditions. It's very similar to dynamic power used also in RC links. The firmware currently shipping with the GT2 and enabling these features is version 39.44.15. Because of that, I also had to update goggles and all of our other VTXs to the same firmware version. It's also worth mentioning compatibility. The GT2 of course remains part of the Walksnail Avatar ecosystem. This means it works with all existing goggles and receivers in the Avatar lineup, including Goggles X, Goggles L, first version of Avatar goggles, and the Avatar VRX. So everything within the Avatar lineup remains compatible, even the oldest hardware. Now let's move on to the camera and image quality. The GT2 uses the Avatar HD Pro camera, the same one used in the previous GT version, based on the Sony Starvice 2 sensor. It's a sensor known for very good low-light performance. So there's nothing new regarding in-camera itself, especially since the GT2 is not intended to be a cinematic system. We are still talking about full HD here, without the flat color profile and without image quality meant to replace a dedicated action camera. For that, Walksnail already has the Moonlight 4K system. The primary goal here is a comfortable sharp image and a stable video link over long distances. And speaking of range, this will be the longest range digital FPV system out there for sure. Even previous Walksnail VTXs already demonstrated the potential for long-range flights, although those records were usually achieved by users running upgraded antennas. For example, here we have a 55 km flight using a previous GT1 transmitter with stock antennas on the VTX side, but with dual triple feed patch array antennas on the receiver side. With other VTXs, you can also find flights reaching dozens of kilometers using upgraded antennas instead of stock ones, especially on the receiver side. Antennas make a huge difference here. Long-range pilots often focus heavily on optimizing their setups and selecting the best antennas possible, sometimes even using antenna tracker stations. In those cases, the achievable range can be pushed incredibly far. With the GT2, however, we can also find reports of flights reaching around 20 km using completely stock antennas, just like in this example here, which is an excellent result for hardware taken straight out of the box without any modifications. To sum it up, I really like the direction Walksnail is heading in, and what we see here with the GT2 feels like a good stage of maturity that the rest of the VTX lineup should now follow. It would be great to see other, more compact VTXs redesigned in a similar way with USB-C, easily accessible card slots, solid MMCX antennas and maybe active cooling like we have here. The GT2 looks like one of the most important products Walksnail has released, not because it's the most powerful or it enables record-breaking range, but because for the first time it truly feels like a fully consumer product. Let me know in the comments what you think about this VTX, whether you already use Walksnail or if you're planning to switch to it. In the next video, we will prepare a step-by-step guide showing how to configure the GM3 gimbal together with the head tracking feature currently available in Goggles X and Goggles L. See you next time!